Thinking Circles is your fractional marketing department, purpose-built for the recruitment industry with deep sector experience. We consult with recruitment agencies, talent teams, and HR and rec tech companies to deliver strategic marketing leadership with tangible results. Our proven approach enables you to attract top talent, drive client growth, and build standout employer brands. As a flexible extension of your team, we offer the insight and support you need to make smarter marketing decisions without the cost or complexity of hiring in-house.
What great ideas are so close within your grasp? Seeing other points of view, anticipating change, considering multiple possible turnouts, acknowledging uncertainty, searching for compromise. We're going to talk about how to get over those limiters of innovation so that you can extract better thinking from yourself and your team. So let's talk about how to win the future.
In this episode, I sit down with Rudi Bauer, someone I've wanted on the show for a long time. We explore his journey from software developer to leading Europe's largest developer community and digging into what developers really want today, how their values are changing, and what skills will shape the future of tech talent. It's a sharp, honest look at where the market is heading and what it means for employers and for candidates alike. Welcome back, everybody, to the Marketing Rules podcast. And it's my pleasure to welcome on board Rudi Bauer. Rudi, we've been backwards and forwards trying to arrange this for probably a good kind of 6 months, mostly my fault, if I'm going to be honest. But I was really keen to have you on because I think what you guys are doing over there at WeAreDevelopers is worth kind of understanding a little bit more. And before then, for all of the listeners and everyone kind of tuning in, Rudi, could you give us a little bit about your background and kind of leading up to what you do now?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Thanks for hosting me. It's a really pleasure being in your podcast. And we met each other, I think, quite a while ago. And we had a really wonderful, nice first initial conversation. And I think we are on the same line. I think we are sharing a lot of thoughts and we are having a lot of common thoughts. And I think the discussion went pretty easy and pretty well from the very beginning. And and I'm really happy to be your guest today. And to my background, I initially started as a software developer. This was late in the 80s, early 90s. I was working in Scandinavia this time, living in Stockholm, and I really enjoyed being a software developer. And then my journey went from product management to marketing to advertising, back to kind of management positions in telecoms industry. And the last 7 years before I joined WeAreDevelopers in 2020, I was the Managing Director for Stepstone in Austria and the Chief Evangelist for Stepstone Group. And during this time, we had a lot of intense discussions on what happens if candidates become more passive candidates. So if we have to deal with passive candidates, if working population is decreasing, I mean, we have a kind of socio-demographic development all over the world, more or less, where we have to look after our labor force because we will definitely come into issues. And we had a lot of brainstorming sessions, how to increase candidate loyalty, how to increase the bonding between the kind of a platform and the users. And we didn't find a solution. So it was really tough because if you take yourself, I mean, we're looking for jobs probably every 3 to 5 years. And in the times in between, I think every job board is boring, annoying, and not really the place to be and the place we want to be. And I was always monitoring and we really tracking what the WeAreDevelopers guys do, because I really loved the idea of building up a community with a kind of a special gimmick or something which is really building up a bonding and a relation and a kind of a loyalty. And these guys started in 2017. And they really managed to build up the biggest developer community in Europe in the meantime. So we're reaching out to 1.6 million developers all around Europe. We're having kind of the biggest developer conference, which is now taking place in July in Berlin. So everybody who has time from the 9th to 11th of July, there's a big happening going on, 15,000 software developers, 600 speakers on more than 20 stages, 2 days full packed of festival and content and entertainment. And I think I really love this kind of idea because this is, for me, the only solution that I really see to really stay in contact with passive candidates throughout their career. And it's based on a simple thesis. One thesis is for 53% of all the people are not really happy with the job they do. And the second number, which I want to throw in, is that 1 out of 7, so 70%, 7 out of 10, sorry, 70% of the people are willing to change their jobs if they get something offered which touches them more than what they currently have. And I think that's a basic thesis, and we are trying to take this kind of effect and to combine to really bring people together with companies and exchange their thoughts, their ideas, their meaning of life, and all this kind of stuff which is necessary, because at the end of the day we are talking about lifetime. I mean, we spend 20% of our entire life in the job. This is a decent amount of time, and I think we should not throw it away by doing something which we honestly don't like.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. One of the things I really like about We Are Developers is you've kind of taken community building to the next level, right?
Mm.
Within marketing, we talk a lot about communities and building communities, and it very kind of, it usually just means a WhatsApp group or something like that. You know what I mean? But you what you've done is its next level stuff, right? You've built a genuine community of people who genuinely want to be there, are dedicated to kind of what you guys do, love what you guys do, turn up to the stuff, and you've kind of moved from online to offline. And you say you've got this great big kind of conference that you put on with, from your community, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's it would be interesting to kind of understand, how you just kind of manage that for a start, right? Yeah, I mean, managing a community of that magnitude on that scale is next level, right?
Mm.
Because it's the kind of things that some of our clients just dream of, being able to have that kind of thing. So, I mean, how do you just simply just kind of keep everybody interested? How do you keep it kind of that community feel with
Yeah.
your developers?
I think it has a lot to do with listening to the community. So I think we call ourselves WeAreDevelopers, and I mean that has a reason, because some of our founders have a developer background as well. So they initially understood the needs. So I think that was probably the first big positive thing, that developers founded We Are Developers. And the second thing, which I think is very important, is you should never lose to take them really as at most important. So we really take them as most important. I think we have to do, because we call ourselves We Are Developers. I think we want to be part of the community, and we want to be we want to stay a part of the community. And the second thing which we have now, and I think that's wonderful, what we've reached in the meantime, and it makes our life much, much easier. In the meantime, the community is producing content for the community. So not we are producing the content. We are more or less, honestly, we are hosting the stages. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're giving them the stage, and they produce the content. And it could be virtual things. It could be in-person things. We are hosting meetups. We are hosting, I mean, Code 100, for example, is a kind of a coding challenge where 100 developers meet every year throughout the year, and then we take the 32 best to Berlin, and then we have the big finals, where they battle from 32 to 16, from 16 to 8, from 8 to 4, from 4 to 2, and then we have the champion for the next year. And so what we try to do is we try to structure it in a way, and what we do is we either say, okay, it needs to fit in one of three pillars. It's either infotainment, which really helps them to do their jobs. They're living in a fast changing world. So the news from yesterday are old shit from the news from yesterday are old shit today. So we keep them informed. I mean, that's one I think that's one column. The second one is entertainment. So we really try to give them entertaining stuff as well. And the third one is everything which is career related. Everybody wants to build his career. They want to continue in building their careers, and we support them in just getting this right. So that is the three pillars. And then we just ask people out there, if something shows up, I mean, with developer relations teams, they are scouting the market. If something like AI appears, then we're trying just to get the best heads together and say, okay, let's talk about AI. What does it mean? What could it mean? If something else shows up, we just grabbed, we look in we do a lookup in our network, and then we take the best people that we can find, and then we have a dedicated flexible session. It could be 1 hour, it could be 2 hours, it could be a full day, or it could be the biggest conference on the world in the meantime, which is the We Developers World Congress, where 15,000 people meet or 17,000 people meet, where we have got 600 speakers on 21 stages in parallel. So we have got 21 tracks. So it could be any scalable format, and it helps us to produce content. And in the meantime, all the rock stars show up as well. So we have all the big names there, and they're coming because they find it important to be there to exchange ideas and thoughts with the community.
And what's great about that is it puts you at the cutting edge of what's kind of going on within talent within the developer space, which is one of the things I wanted to kind of like talk to you about today, which is understanding what is happening in that kind of talent acquisition space in with developers, because when we say developers, it's such a broad term, right? I mean, and as you said, this is an incredibly fast-paced industry. So, what are some of the things that you could highlight that are kind of worth mentioning to the audience at the minute? What are the trends that you're seeing? I mean, I'm assuming you're going to mention AI because you mentioned it already, right? So I'm sure that's going to come up. But yeah, give us a little bit of your insight on what you're seeing, and specifically, let's talk about the European market as opposed to the UK market at the moment. Yeah.
So I mean, what happened in the UK and in the European market from 2019 on? I think there was a big change in behavior. So the mindset has changed dramatically. So I think in 2019, if you have put a recruiter in front of a developer, the developer would have given you a shitstorm, I think, because they didn't even want to talk to these guys, because they were kind of arrogant. They had this kind of luxury situation that if they went out of a company A, they went in by B or C or D, and probably in parallel. So, but that has changed. And honestly, I'm really happy that this happened, because now we have got the kind of both sides are back on eye level, as I call it, because I think the worst situation on the labor market is always if one side is arrogant. I mean, companies have been arrogant for decades, so they were really treating candidates lousy. And I think the term candidate experience was invented because it was so lousy that we had to talk about it. So we needed a term for it, and this was then candidate experience discussions all over the place. So I think that has changed, and now I think the situation is really in a good level. I think everybody has understood a lot of every side has learned the lessons, and in the meantime, I think it's really an open discussion. I think people have learned to talk about their mindsets, about their values, about their expectations. Every side reflected itself. And in the meantime, I think it's a really constructive, open discussion place where people are really willing to talk about their needs. And we do a big developer survey every year. So we found out that the value systems of developers all around Europe has dramatically changed. I think in 2019, it was money and it was a big brands they wanted to work for. In the meantime, they are talking about well-being, they are talking about sustainability, they are talking about diversity, inclusion. Passion is extremely important as we're moving more and more into totally digital worlds where everything what they produce disappears with a click in the cloud. So at the end of the day, they can't even see what they have produced. So I think it's very important that they kind of have a kind of a glue and get a kind of a feeling what they are really doing and what it's later on used for. I think that becomes more and more important. And this is the wonderful news for small companies. I think this gives really good chances to small companies.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're talking about inclusion, about passion, about appreciation, about trust, I think smaller companies have much better starting positions than bigger ones. So I think it's if smaller companies are really able to talk honestly, authentically, and open about this topic in their employer branding campaigns,
Yeah.
I think they are really in a good position to grab the good talents, especially now where a lot of the big ones have fired a lot of people and laid off a lot of people. I think the first time that they're really pissed a little bit about the big brand names. So if you're really a kind of honest, serious, and open organization, willing to talk about weaknesses as well, willing about talking about strength, I think you're in a really good position all over Europe to grab good
Yeah.
talent.
And that's really interesting because that's all the kind of that's the kind of nice kind of reasons, right? For that a developer might want to kind of work for a business. But you did. Let's talk a little bit about the kind of skills that you might need now as a modern developer. What is it that you're seeing in the market? Where are those kind of what type of skills are you kind of seeing that are needed now, might be needed in the future for the developers that you're kind of
I
in
think
your
it's
community?
communication skills. I think it's developers become more and more a part of the organization in a way that they are also involved in strategic thinking, that they're also involved in strategic product developments, and more in a kind of a senior roles in being part of the business
Mm,
itself. So it's not this guy who's sitting somewhere in the basement and putting some code together, because that could probably be done by AI in the near future, and it's already now possible. But honestly, I think that's anyhow the boring part of the job that nobody wants to do, because I was coding a lot in many years ago, and I really hated to put the brackets right. So putting all the brackets right, I mean, that was the most boring thing. and, and to find the errors later on if you forgot one of the brackets. Yeah, I mean, I think that was the really boring stuff. But creating the future, putting things together in the right way, putting teams together in the right way, work and collaborate, I think that's a skill set which is definitely needed, I
yeah.
think.
And are these the skills that developers already have or are working on? Because I reckon, I mean, the stereotypical view
Yeah,
of developers is like you said, you're in a basement tapping away on code. But
yeah,
your kind of your future is they're much more kind of strategically
yeah.
aligned with the business. Are the developers in your community, do they understand that? Are they working towards that? Is that now the big movement is much more kind of to come out of the basement and communication skills, right, and soft
Yeah,
skills?
I think that was a big stereotype, and I think it was misinterpreted
Yeah,
quite often. Because what we saw in all the studies from the very beginning is that they're really team oriented. They're really love to work together. I mean, if they're putting code somewhere in the machine, of course you need a silent place, and probably the basement is the best place you can find to put code somewhere together. But honestly, to solve problems, to work on solutions, to develop a product further, I think that is what they really love to do. And most of them are extremely team oriented. They are extremely open. But what they have, and I mean, that probably that's the biggest difference to other employees, let's call it like this, is that they have, because of the nature of what they do, they have got a really well working bullshit detector.
Great.
You can't cheat them because they really see it immediately, and
Yeah,
that's probably the biggest difference. I mean, you can with cool marketing you can blame a lot of people and you can blend a lot of people, but not developers. Yeah,
yeah. And then on the flip side, are those the kind of skills that employers are now asking for as well? That they want developers to be much more kind of to talk on a strategic level as opposed to tapping away on keys in a basement, or is that something? Does that need to catch up?
I think that needs to catch up as well, because I think we are still struggling with these stereotypes. And I mean, if you see some companies that are still doing 6 coding rounds for getting assessments and getting the developers on board, and they have to do similar kind of proofs and tests and coding tests. And honestly, that could be done by machine. Yeah. So putting code together could probably be done by machines as well, and in the near future even more. I think it's more this kind of, if you have a product strategy, if you have a kind of a development strategy, if you have this right, and if you openly talk with these guys, I think they're willing to support you with their skills, and especially the senior guys, they want to. Honestly, I think every developer, including myself, want to solve business problems or private life problems, and I mean that is why I became a software developer. I saw some really stuff in the company that didn't work. Yeah, and then I set together. I did it fully on myself. I haven't never learned coding except what I've learned myself. Yeah, uh, and I was really autodidact, so to say. But I wanted to solve a business problem at this time. I saw this problem and I saw no solution there. So I said, okay, try to find a solution. And then I sat down and wrote this kind of code to solve the business problem.
And I just want to also just pick up on something you mentioned kind of before. That is the things that are attracting developers to smaller businesses is things like kind of company culture, diversity, etc. Um, on the flip side of that, the traditional and stereotypical view is developers are young and male, right?
Mm,
And and probably white as well.
mm.
You know, it, tell me that's changing, right? Tell me that it's a much more diverse kind of community now. That
Yeah,
it's much more not necessarily kind of forthcoming and open to everybody, but everybody's being given the chance now
yeah.
to become a developer, right?
Honestly, I was really surprised by myself because when I was working in marketing quite a long time, and I always thought the brightest and most shiniest persons are working in marketing or advertising, and that's not true. If you visit our conference in Berlin, I think you see the most colorful, brightest, and glimmery and shiniest persons
Yeah,
at in the developers community.
yeah,
This is so diverse. This is so open. They have got such brilliant mindsets if it comes to inclusion and if it comes to really uh, diverse thinking, but not as a term somewhere on a vision board, but really in daily life.
yeah.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. I was
That
really surprised.
that's great to hear. And that's kind of the other thing I wanted to pick up with you today is obviously we talked about the kind of European market, right? But now We Are Developers has got kind of a presence in the UK. It's got UK kind of you're working with UK businesses, UK developers. Is there a difference in the kinds of talent, the kind of skills, the kind of needed skills and talent that you're seeing from
Mm,
Europe to the UK now that we're not really part of Europe as such? Is there a
yeah.
difference there?
What I see is, I mean, that the understanding for treating or the importance of treating passive candidates and treating, I mean, treating in a positive way now, is much more known in the UK than in other markets. Because as the market is now a little bit isolated and limited, of course, you have to grab the local talents first. And as all the developers all over the place have got a job, or the most of them have got a job, because there's no unemployed developers, still not, yeah. Because if they walk out door A, they walk in door B. So I think this understanding of okay, we need to deal with how could we grab talent from another company. This is by far the most seen and accepted and probably recognized in the UK at the moment. That's the biggest difference that I can see from working in many different markets in Europe. And we entered the UK a year ago with our first steps into it. That is when we met, I
Yeah,
think. So that is the biggest. That's for us. It's a big benefit because we need not to explain what we do and why we do it. Yeah, because it's already learned. It's a lesson learned and it's accepted and it's a kind of people are willing to deal with it. In the rest of some other markets in Europe, we still have this kind of okay. We go to job boards and put our job ads
yeah,
there, and then we get applicants. Yeah.
yeah.
But
And before I let you go, Rudy, because this has been absolutely fascinating. If there's any parents or any kind of someone who's younger or thinking about getting into development, I don't know, maybe they love computer games and they want to get into
mm,
that. I mean, what's the route into market? Where do you see the future for kind of developers? And I know you talked a little bit about these kind of soft skills around communication, around kind of strategic thinking. Um, but if I was going to, if I was considering going to university, or even if I was at college, right,
yeah.
where should I be aiming myself at this point, right? Is there any, you know, any kind of type of code that I should be kind of definitely looking at? Should I be kind of concentrating everything on AI at the minute? Should I just be do it in the bedroom and do business studies at the same time to kind of to mix and match?
Mhm.
What would you do, right, if you were in that situation now?
Honestly, I think there's not one direction which is the right one. I mean, that's the difficult part. I think there's a lot of things going on in that environment, and I think what's really important was driving my own business life and my own career. It was curious, staying curious. So curiosity, I think, is the curiosity and not being afraid of change and not being afraid of uh, I think that the really big difficulty if you're a software developer and if you want to stay there is that you never have this kind of situation where say, I know a lot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or I know everything now. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
That will definitely never happen. So if you're a guy who can live with this kind of situation, lifelong learning is probably the most important thing, and everything you know today is worthless tomorrow, or probably worthless tomorrow. I mean, if you can live with this kind of truth, and that's a truth, yeah, then I think you're good to go. And the rest is then let's drive yourself. Let's drive yourself by curiosity, and yeah, be brave enough and bold enough to say, okay, even if I don't know it today, I probably know it tomorrow.
yeah.
And yeah, I think that's more or less it.
That's a brilliant point to kind of, I think, close out on. Rudi, it's been an absolute pleasure. We'll obviously include all your details to your own LinkedIn, to the We Are Developers kind of website. I've been a fan for a long time. Since we met, I think it's a great platform. It's a great kind of community. As you said, you've kind of got your big kind of conference coming up. There's, sounds like it's going to be another kind of great evening.
Yeah,
I know the other good thing, it's not just one of those another boring conference, right? It's like a festival, right?
yeah,
It is like going to a rock festival or something like that, right? I know there's
yeah,
there's all the entertainment, there's the DJs, there's all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
And if anyone is kind of available, and we'll put the dates up on the Zoom, and they're in kind of and and able to attend, then I absolutely kind of say you must go, because it looks great. I've never been myself.
Yeah.
I want to at some point. I will do at some point, but it looks amazing, basically.
And the wonderful thing is, James, I will give you 5 Congress passes to raffle them out to your community. So
Even better. That's very kind of you, and I'm sure that the listeners are going to be kind of beating down my door for those tickets. Rudi, it's a pleasure. Thank you for finally kind of coming on the podcast, and for now, thank you very much.
yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you. It was a pleasure for me as well. Thanks.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget you can subscribe to the Marketing Rules podcast on Apple, Spotify, and all other major podcasting platforms. I've been your host, James Whitelock, and I hope you can join me and more amazing guests next time. The Marketing Rules podcast is a Think in Circles production.